안녕하세요. Många tycker och hej world, jag heter Zack the Demon Lord. Uh, hey world, this is Zack the Demon Lord and yet again another YouTube video. A while back, I promised in my Hangul video, my original Hangul video, that I was going to make a video about the sound change rules. This is that video. Oh no. Yeah, so today I was going to try to teach about Hangul in Japanese, and then I just realized just how little vocab I had, and that I wasn't well equipped to teach about that quite yet. So I changed plans to teach about this. Yeah, let's get into it. Some of these rules I might have taught about. I have a page up online. You could probably find it. Um, it's from Miss Ellie Korean apparently, and it's just a PDF about Korean sound change rules, so you could probably find it online. Anyways, the first one I am fairly certain that I have talked about. It calls it the resyllabification rule. Essentially, what this rule means is if you have a word where the where the first consonant ends with a pachim or end consonant sort of syllable, and the next one starts with an ing, that pachim just carries over and becomes a normal syllable. For example, their example is the number 15. 15 consists of the word for 10 and 5. 10 is sheep and 5 is o. And then when you put that together, it becomes not, it won't be sheep o, but shibo. Shibo. It carries on over. It does say there's some exceptions, which these are pretty clear. And that would be if the bachim is an ing, it's not going to carry over. For example, it has birthday, which is sengil, sengil. That's kind of hard to do it at the beginning, obviously, so it's pretty logical. Sengil, sengil. It just kind of doesn't carry over. The other exception is if it ends with an H. Pretty clear though, like its example is good, which is choa, not choha, but choa. The H will never carry over in this sort of case. Next up, I don't know if this one I basically covered. Ending consonants, bachim simplification. It's basically just talking about the end noises of the letters, which we've already gone over. So yeah, what it does, it does kind of re-stress that first rule though, that it will carry over. For example, mat, which is taste, if it's followed by the e, the marker e is going to become mashi, not mat e, but mashi. So yeah, I mean that's a given though. It's just going to carry over. The third one it has here is reinforcement or intensification. So basically, this is when you have a hard sort of bachim, like you have a anyways, you just have a bachim that's followed by another bachim that's a hard character. For example, a school, which is hakkyo, which is going to become hakkyo, where the second one kind of becomes a pseudo song gyuk instead of a normal gyuk. The next one is student, which is hakseng, which will be kind of like hakseng, where because the kick at the end, it makes the shit becomes kind of like a song shit. And then it has magazine, which is chop chi, so chop chi, which will make that kind of like a song jit with the last sort of syllable. And then it has to eat, which is mokda, which will become kind of like mokda, which again kind of a song at the end. It says for an exception here. ending hiet only reinforces a shiet to song shiet. So basically, what that means is, for example, in the formal speech version of like choa or choyo, it becomes 초 습니다 or together 좋습니다. The S kind of gets dragged out. That's the only sort of exception, is that the H in most cases won't do anything, but with the shiits it'll drag the shiit out to make it longer. Nasalization, basically, this will apply to mainly your giak, diet, shiit, and jit is when it's the final consonant, the bachim, and then it's followed by a nian. It'll change sound to reflect kind of that. I don't know. Or I guess it does it a little differently. So giaks, for example, the example they have here is domestic or in country, as guk and ne. Guk means country, ne means inside, but together it becomes gungne. The giak becomes kind of like an in, gungne. And then with the diet, shiat, and jiet, it'll turn into an n. So, for example, as correct as an adjective. So correct would be matnen, but together mannen. It becomes an n at the bottom, so it kind of drags out the n noise a little bit. And then with biep, biep will turn into an miem noise. And so, as 감사합니다 as an example, because 감사합니다 is really spelled 감사합니다, but the piep with the hap turns into a miem noise, so 합니다 instead of 합니다. 합니다, 감사합니다. And then, of course, you can just follow the rules over. Okay. And then it has sort of exception at the end. This exception's not really exception, but like it's like the same thing, but it happens on both sides, if that makes sense. So basically, if you have a giak for bachim that's followed by a lir in the next consonant syllable or whatever, the giak will become an iang noise, and then the lir will become a nian noise. So, for example, as independence, which is spelled dok rip, will become dong nip. See how it does that? The dok turns into dong, and the rip turns into nip. So dong nip. Okay. Next we have what is called the lir assimilation rule. This is pretty easy. It's kind of like the double lir. Like if you end with a lir and the next one's a lir, it'll just become like a long lir noise. So right? But in this case, it's where, like, if you end with a lir and the next one is a nian, or vice versa, it'll just be a long lir. So in this case, they have Shille, which is indoors, which is spelled shil ne, room inside. And then they also have Shilla, which is an ancient Korean kingdom, which is Shin Ra, which becomes Shilla. The next rule they have here is aspiration. So there's basically it's has to do with anything around the hit. The first example is with North Korea. So basically we end with kyuk, and then the next letter starts with a hit, and because of the hit, it's not bukhan but bukan, and so the gyuk just gets assimilated with the hit and becomes like the strong kick. So bukan, 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 bukan. And then the next is dictionary form of good. So we got cho da, but because the hit becomes cho ta. And then next we got answer correctly or whatever, which it looks like mat hida, but the jit gets assimilated by the hit and becomes machida. Machida. Okay. Whatever. Next we have palatalization. So this is when like certain characters come into contact with an E. So for example here, the first example is the word kachi, which means together. If you look at it, it's actually spelled kat-e, but it's not kati, but kachi. So the tit, for some reason, because the e that comes after, it becomes a chi noise, so kachi. And then the next example they have is kuji, which is spelled kut-e with the dit at the end, but because of the e, it becomes a jit noise, so kuji. Da, 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 da. Yeah. And then they have something about intrusive nian. I think this just has to do with like original Liu based characters. Is basically there's going to be some characters that are in the E family that, because the original Chinese character behind the word began with a Liu noise, it'll kind of go with the flow of that, and so you kind of apply Liu sort of rules to that. That's the sound change rules they have on here. I don't know from the top of my head if that's all of them, but that sounds like all of them. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. Hopefully you're able to learn something from this video. I don't know if that was a perfect everything, but I hope it was. But yeah. If you liked the video, give it a like. Please subscribe if you like this sort of content, and share with friends and family that might like this content. It'd be much appreciated. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, damet boyo.